Welcome back. Following on the fire assessment, I am going to expand a little bit on the concept of the stress associated with post-COVID-19 virus, because I think it's highly important and relevant to understand what is really happening due to this virus. So COVID-19 can be described as a caveat, which we typically include in the DWAP test, and we must then understand the effects and the consequences. Because COVID happened outside of our business, of our planning, of our internal controls, and we can only now respond to those things. That is why we call it a strategic factor that we have to consider. I just want to add to that, how does this COVID virus affect businesses? As itself, the virus was not a disruptor, but we can say that it was a disruption accelerator, because things that were happening outside there in the environment of business, technology, supply chains, online sales, etc., those were the ones that were accelerated now by the COVID virus. So if you look at the DWAP test again, just to say, typically you have to have demand for your product. If you can supply that demand, if you have the capacity to do so, it is useful, and it's more possible to have a business if you can do it profitably and generate the cash that is associated with the requirements of the business. And then finally, that there shouldn't be any caveats. If you can put all of those together, you have a fair chance of having a viable business, which has to do with what exactly is it that you are supplying to the customer. And you will see that we talk about it in the next slide as we speak about jobs to be done for every customer. So now let's pursue the arena items for that information to the DWAP test. The first thing that you have to be very clear on is, what is the job that you are doing for your customer? It is crucially, it's at the heart where that blue P is in the middle there, the positioning of the business. That's what we speak about here. The jobs to be done for the customer. After that, you have to look at the resource pool, and we see from what part of their resources are they able to pay for your product. If it's basic foodstuffs, it's important, but is it maybe discretionary funds which people now might not have? And we see that COVID has influenced the availability of money by the customers for paying you for your products significantly. And this is one of the biggest problems that we associate with demand destruction. The resource pool has been destructed. The third one is the contestants for the same pool. What is happening to the other competitors in the market who are pursuing the same resource pool as you are pursuing? You have to understand what's happening to them too. And then the consumption change. How do people access your product? How do they know about it? Do they go online? Do they go to the shop? Do they drive somewhere? How do they access your product, and how are they exposed to your product, right from marketing until the buying and the delivery maybe of the product? You have to understand the consumption chain, and that consumption chain has been significantly influenced by the lockdowns. Number 5, the value attributes and experiences that people buy. That goes together with the jobs to be done. Do they buy something because it's convenient, or is it because they just do not have any other choice? How do they experience the process of accessing it compared to the contestants for the same pool? And you have to consider those things all together. And finally, do you still have the organizational capacities, appropriation capacity again? Do you have the people to do the work, or did you have to let the people go that did the work in the past because you couldn't pay them due to the effect of the virus? And you can see I've drawn a couple of those links between the different elements, how they influence each other, and you can again see that it is an integrated process and connections of the relationships between all of those things. Finally, this slide contains the arena elements that you just spoken about in the previous slide, and it gives a little bit of information on each of those elements. And I find this extremely useful when you consider your positioning, as you can see there in the yellow line, and what your strategic message or your strategy message will be about. How are you passing the information to your potential customer? And those things just explain for us those important elements.